Okay, so why don't we start? Why don't you introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about your company and kind of what you do?
Oh, wow, that's great. My name is Arturo Ramirez. Well, middle initial H for Labio, and that's a really fun name. That's where the A.H.R. Florals comes from. Picking a company name is really hard, so I just went with my initials. And I really stumbled into this flower life and have just been like riding the craziest waves the last, looking at almost 4 years now, since I like started dabbling. And yeah, I'm located in sunny San Diego. I have the pleasure of working with the amazing Carlsbad branch of A.H.R. You guys are the best. And yeah, I just bump around town, making pretty messes and picking them up after, and then starting the next one.
How did you get started? Like, I mean, stumbled upon it? How did that happen?
So let's see. I come from a fashion background, so I went to fashion school. I worked for a fashion show producer for about 5 years, and then ended up working at a clothing line for a while. And the thing about the apparel industry is that it's like you have to be in certain places in order to make it. Like LA, New York, and San Diego is not on the list. So I knew I didn't want to move to one of those cities. Great to visit, not for living. And I was just kind of a little stagnant. And then at that job, they asked me to build, they just handed me like a giant foam board and a box full of fake flowers and said, can you just make a flower wall really quick? And I'm like, I guess. And in that process, I was like, this is fun. I wonder what it would be like with real flowers. And then shortly after, I went to a wine and paint night with my best friend. We had a great time. A lot of wine was served, but I was like, I wish I was learning something else. Like this is a cool like situation. I just wish, I wonder what else I could learn while I'm drinking, because apparently I'm really good at things when I'm drinking. And so flowers came up. Aren't we all? We're great at it. So flowers came up, and I looked into it. I was like, I wonder if it exists. It didn't. And I don't know what drove me to then. I was like, okay, well, I got on YouTube. I found the fabulous Leanne Kressler from the flower school and learned a few simple things. I went to Trader Joe's. I was like, I'm good at this. And it just kept going. Tricked my friends into coming over for flower arranging and wine party, which ended up being named Pinot and Petal. And I took pictures. I conned a local wine bar into letting me host it there, pretending like I knew what I was doing. And then that was in May of 2017. It was for Mother's Day. And then I taught those classes monthly, and then in bars all over San Diego for the next year. During that year, I booked my first wedding, which was in 2018. From that wedding came 2 more. From those 2 came a few more. So it's just it's just started growing out of nowhere. And in that process, I was like just exposed to so many amazing people and attended like different workshops and stuff. And so I really worked on sharpening my skills in that time. And it's crazy. It's just like this living, my career is like a living organism that's just like following me around. Like I'm like, what do you need me to feed you now? And I just like taking care of it, and it's taking care of me.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's kind of how we ended up here.
Yeah, that's a cool story. That's a really cool story.
Just to show you, a drunk night could go a long way.
That's right. Night. Not all mistakes happen on drunk nights.
Not all mistakes happen on drunk nights.
So you're of Mexican descent. How do you? How do you think that kind of played a part in sort of your style or your creativity? Any struggles? Tell me a little bit about how your culture is kind of infused in your style.
Yeah, I think that any different perspective really helps drive the creative world. So I think that, you know, when you are only looking at things through one perspective, you can get really just fall in line with the flow of trends and how things are working. Yeah. But I think when you come from a different background in a country like the United States, I think that's why so many amazing creatives and so much beautiful work comes out of the United States, because you have people on the same track as others, but they come from such a different perspective. So they're able to see things differently, interpret things differently. The references are different. So I think that I always try to infuse some of my culture. I'm very proud of my culture, and I was fortunate enough to grow up here in San Diego and be so close to it.
Yeah.
And I went to school with all sorts of different cultural backgrounds, religious backgrounds, etc. It was a very diverse upbringing. And then went home to a house that I wasn't allowed to speak English in. We were like, we have to speak Spanish in this house. My parents were very strict about how being proud of our culture. And so, and I watched Mexican television, but then I watched American television. So I think that those things, while they seem like, oh, whatever, they do play into how I'm able to design, because I'm able to take something that's standard, like a pompous grass wedding, and try to find a way to twist it, because it's in my process to constantly interpret things in a different way, because I'm running on 2 different languages, because I'm running on 2 different completely cultural worlds in my mind.
Yeah. That's really interesting, because I think, like, with your style, you definitely have, kind of like your spicy side. I've seen, like colors, really, really interesting colors, but then sort of that traditional, roses and fails and all that. I love that you're so diverse, and that you pull from your culture. Any struggles?
Yeah, it's interesting because of the way that I grew up. I mean, I grew up in the suburbs of Chula Vista, and so all my classmates were like, we were all Mexican or Filipino, or like I had Black friends, Korean friends, Jewish friends, like Muslim friends. Like I didn't really grow up with those racial tensions as much. And so when I got into the workforce is when I really started to like feel them. And I've been very fortunate that I haven't experienced anything too intense, but there are a lot of microaggressions I have to deal with on a daily basis. Like sure. I might be installing an arch or something like gorgeous and beautiful, and the wedding guest will still try to ask me to refill their drink. And at the market, it's one of the things that drives me the most crazy. It's like I'll be filling up my rack, and I'll be shopping, and I'll have this gorgeous rack full of product, and some little white lady will still come up to me and be like, how much is this? And I'm like, I'm shopping like you are, and I'm not making a crappy wooden box. So I need you to put some respect on my name, because it's those type of things where you just assume certain positions. And I feel like in order to avoid a lot of the struggles that could come with being a person of color, with being a queer person, like you have to come with your game together. Like I can't show up looking a mess to my events. Like I have to play up my personality and be extra fun to make people more comfortable with me right off the bat, because people can be kind of intimidated by the fact that I'm this large brown man coming at them, trying to sell them a wedding, when it's like, no, I have to come in super polished. I have to come in a little bit gayer. I have to come in a little bit more polite. I have to come in all these things. So the struggle is just that I can't be regular. Like I can't be basic ever. Like my game has to be on point at all times. And that's kind of the struggle of the colored queer person trying to succeed. It's just a little bit, we have to go 150% when most people get to go 100%. Yeah.
Well, I love that you say, you have to go a little extra, you have to be a little gayer, you have to be a little, more, I love that, because I think that kind of encompasses your personality, and it kind of sets you apart, really,
Yeah. Well, I have to work to set myself apart, because otherwise I won't even be given the time of day. The image of what a floral designer is, a pretty white girl. And I'm not that. So I have to make sure that I really push past that line, and make people comfortable with me and respect my work, because I don't walk around with my Instagram grid on my shirt, like sometimes when you're meeting somebody in person, you have to make sure you're ready to go. So yeah.
Speaking of Instagram, I know that you do, oh my gosh, I've said this since day one. Your Instagram is so like perfect. It's impeccable. And
thank you.
And like your stories, and like, oh my gosh, they're just so interesting. How do you come up with like your ideas, or what inspires you?
I wish there was a method to it. I think that when it comes to Instagram, you just have to be like your most authentic self. I think if you sit there and try to like create something, it's a lot harder. And there are people who are amazing at that. Influencers make their living off of writing their narrative and portraying it on Instagram. I literally am just like, every second that I have, I make sure if I have a free second or there's something that it could show, I try to show it as much as I can and like just be honest. And it's a really nice way of connecting with people. These days, I'll tell you, I've been posting a lot, and it's because I need people to realize how busy I am. Because there's not people are emailing because how busy I am.
Oh, busy. Yeah, right, oh my goodness. Yeah, for sure.
It's like with wedding Armageddon that we're living right now, like
yeah, that's a perfect
people are getting a little bit impatient. So my emails now that I get like don't start with like, have you seen this? They start with, I know you're really busy, and that's because I'm posting everything that I'm doing. So people realize like it's nonstop. And it's the same with all my peers. I'm sure we're all, whenever we see each other at the market or something, we're always just like, are you okay? Because I don't know if I'm okay. Like, cause that's what we're living right now.
It literally went from like famine to feast. I mean, it's,
and I had diabetes now from that feast. So I could use a cleanse.
How do you think it's going to play out through the year and even next year?
I think that we're all going to just ride this wave for now. I think that things will eventually calm down. I think we talk about it a lot here in the studio, especially. We're really working 2020 and 2021 at the same time.
Yeah.
My studio, I split a studio with another designer, Michael from MR Floral Event, who is literally my North Star. And we together did 21 events in May. And so it was just like insanity, but it's because all of a sudden we're dealing with 2 years worth of events at one time. So I think by 2022, we'll still have a lot of work. It just won't be hopefully as intense. And I think the tensions will die down a bit. Because I think what's adding to the stress of right now is that everybody's just lost their marbles. I mean, we've all been like locked away in our little caves. All of a sudden we want everything now. And, we're all small business. A lot of floral designers, most of us are small business owners. We don't have the infrastructure to handle this much stuff. So I think that we'll be drinking a lot. And if you're in California, you'll be smoking a lot. And we'll be getting through it as best as we can. And we'll see each other on the other side, I'm sure.
Yeah. So what advice, Arturo, could you give maybe a young queer Mexican person of color? What advice would you give them if they wanted to kind of break into floral design? Like, how would you kind of guide them along?
Particularly with somebody who's Mexican and queer. Interesting. I think that the thing is, I think the youth of today have it so much better. Like they are so much more encouraged to lean into their uniqueness and their otherness. I'm so sorry about that. And so I just think that it's important to be true to yourself in this process. Like, you really have to embrace what makes you unique. It's the pressure sometimes of like falling in line can get to you. And just know that, especially in this economy, like, people are looking for personalities, for work, for just like everything that's different than what they're used to seeing. Like, they want to see something stick out. We're in a culture of individuality now, whereas before we were in a fall in line herd situation. So so I just think if you just stay strong and work hard. I mean, just know that this job sounds really fun, and people love to say your job looks so relaxing, but it's going to be a lot of work, and you have to really figure out if you're in it to win it. And if you are, just keep at it. It'll pay off. Yeah.
What's the biggest misconception, do you think, about floral design?
The biggest, you know what, right now I've been thinking about this a lot. The biggest misconception is that floral designers just show up with the centerpiece and plop it on a table, and rarely do I get to do that. I so often am delivering like more than like just the basis. I'm delivering different decor items. We're installing on site. We're lighting candles. We're involved in the whole design process. So I think that right now is the biggest misconception, is that floral designers are just florists. And I think there's a big difference. Florists are masters at the retail game and getting it done. Productivity is key. And designers will really have to be so much more creative and so much more involved in the process. And we really set the tone sometimes for the entire event.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's a big difference between an event designer and a florist, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Any exciting projects coming up?
Yeah, so I have just a lot of weddings. Yeah, just getting through this wedding season. A big project is building a team. Is that a project? Yeah. So I know
Yeah,
that
sure
we're all
is.
kind of trying to relate on that, is like figuring out how to staff ourselves. And I'm so sorry about this noise. I don't know what to do about it. But yeah, so right now we're really focused on building a team and having like other designers and freelancers and that kind of stuff that we can count on, so we can grow our businesses, because yeah, we have a lot of things coming up, and as things growing, we want to be able to grow our hands as well.
Yeah. So if you were planning a photo shoot for tomorrow, what would it look like? Go.
If I was planning a photo shoot for tomorrow, you know what? I got some black baccaras for a mock-up yesterday, and all I can think about is I just want like a sea of black baccaras. Like I just want to see redhead. I've been really thinking it. And I did a photo shoot in February that was like neutrals with a pop of red, but I want to see like a very deep burgundy, like
super
just, like,
moody,
but super moody, very few varieties, and then like some crazy tropical foliages, like yeah, like I just want to feel like nice and juicy and sexy.
Yeah, sexy. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
I'm hoping that I think red is slowly going to become more of a wedding trend in flowers. Like it used to be in the 80s, and like, I mean, we're living in kind of the beginning of the 80s right now.
For real.
So I think we're going to be seeing red coming up within the next like year or so.
Okay. Reds and burgundies and juicy, sexy, and moody colors. Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much, Arturo, for sitting with me and chatting about you.
My pleasure.
Amazing, amazing event company.
Thank you.
Today, I honor you. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I honor you, Val. It's nice to see each other like outside of our morning stuff.
I know. Are we going to do this?
Oh, yeah. Let's go.
We're doing it. All right.
Ready?
Can you hear it?
Uh-huh. I wish I could see.